Welcome to Moonscapes. It is May 16th, 2013, a Wednesday night, and we've got a moon approaching first quarter. I guess my first video in about a month. My name is Jim Hannon. I'm coming from Terryville, Connecticut. I'm using a Max Sudoff Cassegrain Skywatcher telescope, 5-inch in diameter, f12 focal length, nice short focal length, folded into a short light path, so you have a nice light and short telescope tube. We are working with an Orion Atlas EQG mount, which works very nice and smoothly compared to my mount that I used over the winter months. If you saw some of my earlier winter videos that I did back in January and February with an Atlas Skyview Pro. That scope was left out, the mount was left out in the cold, and it was left available for any night, and I could just plop the scope on it and after uncovering the mount and work from a shed. Well, I'm working now here in the springtime with this better Atlas mount, and as you can see, I have much better control. I have gentle control of it in all directions with no delay, which is really nice. I'm imaging with some nice eyepieces. They are Orion eyepieces. They're the Stratus series of eyepieces that they've got. They are 68-degree field eyepieces, so they work nice with the webcam that I'm using. I'm using a Logitech C910 webcam. And if you've checked out some of my earlier videos and how I actually built my holder, you can see that the webcam actually just gets held right over these eyepieces. So the more field of view you have, the better it is for observing, and better field you get. Well, right now, the two nice craters that we're sitting on. Let me get my Atlas going here again for my Moon Atlas computer going. That crater, the largest one up near the top of the field right now, is Aristoteles. That crater is 90 miles in diameter, and then just below it is the crater Eudoxus. Eudoxus is a little bit smaller. It's 70 miles in diameter. But what I noticed was really nice here is look over to the right side of the field here. That's right near the Terminator tonight, and look at those hills and little mountains. I've got a little bit of zoom on this eyepiece. Let's zoom in a little bit and take a look at it. We'll see what we can do with it. That always fascinated me when you get a very low sun angle and you get this detail. Let's play with a little bit with some of the settings and see if I can pull out a little bit more of this. I think I've got everything set on auto right now. No, I don't actually. Let's just see if we can pull out a little more of this detail. Pull up a little more exposure. It brightens it up. It's a little bit too much. It's kind of overpowering it. But there we go. There's a. You can see some of those nice. It almost reminds me of sandpaper. Looking at it, there's those low hills and mountains in there. It's really something. One thing we got to realize we're dealing with here. We are in Connecticut. Connecticut is notorious for a horrible seeing. You can see the shaking there. I'm doing actually a little bit of an experiment tonight. I've been working almost exclusively with a 21 millimeter eyepiece, and then using it straight or with a 2 or 3 times barlow, and that has worked. Has given me a tremendous amount of zoom. Well, I did some testing during this last moon cycle, and when the moon was past full and wasn't getting out here, and I found out that I could get my 13 millimeter if I took time to set it up and get the camera over it, and I could get a fair amount of zoom with it. It's here. zoom all the way in. That's zoomed all the way in, and you can see how bad the seeing gets here when we zoom all the way in. But this is what we have for zoom now with this 13 millimeter eyepiece set up properly with the camera made it to it as well as I can get it made it. And we'll see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And now we're at 9. We see over there, we're just starting to see a little vignetting over there in the left-hand corner. And you can see that little bit of yellow over in the right-hand corner. So we have about 8, 9 levels of zoom. Not bad for that 13 millimeter eyepiece. Color tonight, the moon is a little bit on the bland side. We'll look at that in a little bit more. If any of you remember, okay, we'll move around here a little bit while I'm doing some talking here. If any of you remember last month, I did a couple of videos and we were talking about different features. We're coming down into Mare, I believe this is Mare Serenitatis here now. Yeah, that's right on the terminator. That lone crater out on the floor. Let's see, that I believe is Basel. Let me just double check myself on that in my atlas here. Yeah, that's Basel. That's 10 miles. 10 miles in diameter. And we can zoom in on that a little bit. Anyway, last month we were talking about, we got into UFOs and we got into color and NASA and all that. And like I said, I hated to get into that subject because I know some people out there believe in UFOs. I'm more of the scientific minded and don't. I'd come out and I mentioned that I was going to a convention and going to meet a real good friend of mine, and he was going to come back here, and he was an expert in imaging. And we would hopefully had going to do a series, at least one video together, and discuss the color situation of this camera. Well, unfortunately, we had a great time at the convention at NEAF down in New York, and he flew in from Idaho, and unfortunately, I think he somewhere along in the airports picked up a nice bug. He got sick, and I got it about a day after him, a real bad bronchitis, real bad case that just knocked you on your rear end, and neither one of us were in any condition to get out and do any observing when he was here in Connecticut, unfortunately. So that was the reason for us not getting the video out when he was here. The one thing that we were able to do, and I'm searching here for something I want to bring up and show to you. Here is the crater Posidonius. I'll continue my story about my buddy here in a second. Posidonius is, that's one of the little tiny craters. Got to be careful, this computer here for the atlas. If you hit the little craters within it, it'll give you Posidonius 1, Posidonius 2. And we want the main crater, and there it is. The main crater Posidonius, 58 miles in diameter. Let me play with some of these settings. That's what happens if I put it in auto. What's it do when we get it in auto? It's not too bad. Not too bad there. Anyway, as I was saying, my friend and I were both big-time and long-time amateur astronomers. I have been an amateur astronomer for, boy, I just can't believe it, 57 years. I started when I was 12 years old. I became a serious amateur astronomer. Stayed with it all through high school, and then after I got married and came out of the Navy, got into serious research work in the amateur field, and I was in it for 57 years. My friend, he's a bit younger than I am, but still he's been in it 45 years, and he's even doing more serious work right now. He's into spectroscopy. He's doing some really serious work. Anyway, you add those two numbers together, and you find that we have a total of 102 years of experience using astronomical telescopes. Now, that doesn't make me or him any, experts in the field, but it does give us, a little more knowledge than the average person. Talking about when he was here, as I said, we were both not well at all, but we did get a chance to view some videos on YouTube that I had told him about, and we really looked at them carefully. The ones that talked about the UFOs and the bases and the atmosphere and the moon and the color. Now, my friend and I, we come right down the line equal on the life on the moon. We do not subscribe to that issue at all. The only moon bases that are on the moon right now were the locations were Apollo 11, Apollo 12, Apollo 14, Apollo 15, Apollo 16, and Apollo 17, where the base is set for the landers, which acted as launch pads for the ascent vehicles. They were bases for us when we were on the moon, walking around in the Apollo era. There are no bases left on the moon. You may or may not believe that. That's fine. But anyway, that's our take. But the color was the big thing that we wanted to get into. And my friend looked at the color issue with me. And again, we really agreed pretty well. We're of the same take on it, that the professional is that the moon is basically a grayish and not too much color. But we do agree that there is some color. There is a small amount of color on the moon. You're not going to see it looking at it with your eye. For example, right here, Mare Serenitatis is up on the top of the field. There's that dark line going through the middle of the field, and below it is Mare Tranquillitatis, tranquility. And look at we can boost the color up there, and you can see up on top it's yellowish brown. The bottom has this bluish look to it. Now, this camera really does pump up color, and it'll take the color, the very, very slight colors on the moon, and it'll really pump it up. So yes, there is some color. Now, but you've got to remember this camera is really pumping it up. It's exaggerating it. It's taking color that's there and really, really pumping it up so that you can see it. So you've got to do it carefully and in mind that the color is very subtle and is slight, and these cameras have a tendency to really over pump that color. But there is some color, and the camera does a nice job in showing those different colors. Now, the moon tonight is not showing us an awful lot of color. As we get on past first quarter, get into the gibbous phases, going towards full moon, and more color begins to pop out, and at that point you're better off using lower power eyepieces. It shows more of the moon, and it shows you more color. Let me just check something out here. I want to. There's that crater that's over just into Mare Tranquility, the larger crater that's more in the blue. It's a little, well, here, I'll tell you what, let me center it a little better. It's just about dead center now. That is Plinus, and that crater is 26 miles in diameter. But getting back to the color, there's one thing that you've got to be aware of and be a little bit careful of. With certain telescopes, compound telescopes, especially the Schmidt-Cassegrain telescopes, and telescopes like I'm using, the Maksutov Cassegrains, they have what are called secondary obstructions, and I'll explain that in a second. But they tend to throw a little bit of a shadow back on the bright moon. It's something that you don't notice when you look at all kinds of other astronomical objects. But on the moon, as you're focusing the camera, you'll see that dark circle from the central obstruction. And within that circle, it'll show the color variations nicely. But if you're using a very low power, if you've seen some other videos on YouTube, and you've noticed where they're backed out and they're showing a large portion of the moon, they're showing some nice color in and around the center. There's the blues and a little bit of maybe the yellows and like that. I like to say like a butterscotch color to it. You get that look to it sometimes. It's just pretty nice. But then sometimes you notice when these really low power shots right around the outer part of the image, all around in a circular form, there's this green on the outside, and a lot of people say, well, what is that? Is that grass? Is that trees? No, that is false color, and that is being caused by the central obstruction. And you can prove it very easily. In fact, here, if I want to, I'll use this as to show you what I mean. I'm going to zoom in below where I need be, so you begin to see some of my vignetting. See that color on the edge there that's reddish? That is false color. That's not really on the moon. See that crater that's right next to it that's fairly big? Look, it looks quite natural. Look what happens when we move it. If we move it, let's move it. Now we move it down into the red, and what do we have? We have a red crater. Well, that crater is not red. And here I can show you. Let's take it out of the red, put it in the center of the field, and there we have the natural color look to it. You can see what's happening. There is false color that's coming in along the edge of these fields. And a lot of that is being caused by the central obstruction of the telescope. So that's what I was saying, that you have to be a little bit careful with the color on these cameras and telescopes. Now, central obstruction, I'm sure most of you, a lot of you out there probably already know what it is, but all it is certain types of telescopes, like the Schmidt-Cassegrain telescope. It has a corrector plate in front where the light comes through, it comes down, hits the main mirror, which is a concave mirror, and sends the light path back up to the back of that glass corrector plate, and on the back of that there is a reflective mirror. And that mirror sends the image back down through the main mirror and out to the eyepiece. That secondary mirror that's reflecting the light down through the eyepiece is a central obstruction. It's right in the middle of the glass corrector plate, and it blocks a certain amount of the light, and that's what we call a secondary obstruction. So that is causing some of the problems that you see with this color. But again, the camera itself, again, it's doing a great job. It really boasts the color. It takes true color and really pumps it up. I mean, let's be serious. If you take a real good quality color film and snap a picture of the moon even with a telescope, you're not going to get the color picture that you get with this Logitech webcam. This webcam is just doing a much better job of taking that color and really, really pumping it up. So as far as the color goes, that's about the best I can do. Here we go. Nice. This is one of my favorite cratered areas on the moon. Up near 11 o'clock is Theophilus. Katharina, I believe, is that bottom one. Yeah, let me check something. I tend to kind of forget about these as time goes by. Let me see. I want to make sure that's Theophilus. Okay, the one up near 11 o'clock is definitely Theophilus. And I might as well give you the miles on these as I'm doing them. Theophilus. Let's see, that's 61 miles in diameter. And then stuck right in the side of Theophilus, kind of stuck to it and half into it, is Cyrillus. That crater is 59 miles in diameter. And then, let's bring this up. And that crater now, which is coming up and is near the center of the field of view, that crater is, I believe, is Katharina. Katharina, yeah, and it is 61 miles in diameter. That's a nice area of the moon. And we can do some fooling around. Let's fool some color intensity and see what happens here in this area. See if I boost the color up. It's not doing too bad. It's more of a yellowish green. If I bring it down where I think the color, I'm up at about 70%. I don't like to go quite that high. I like bringing it down and leaving it right around here, right around the 50% point. And it seems to be a pretty good balance of color. Very, very, very pretty area of the moon. We'll move on here. like I say, I'm a little surprised. I am getting a, and there's my altai scarp. That's white snakes. Yeah, it looks like a snake going through there. That's a fault ridge along the moon. It runs for hundreds and hundreds of miles. It's I don't fully know whether it's in one side's been thrust up or one side sunk or both actually, and it's created that ridge on the moon. But it's really a pretty nice feature. And by the way, speaking of features, if you go back and check my my last video, I believe under the Moonscape names, I believe this is going to be number 8. Yeah, I think it's number 8. But anyway, my last Moonscape video, the last one I did, I ran into this object that looked just like an X on the moon, and I was a little bit surprised by it. And I added a little note and later on, and added it to the description of the video a little later on also. And I looked it up quickly. It's actually called Purbeck's Cross. Way back in the cobwebs of my mind, and I'm getting up there in age, as you already have known from what I've told you. I do vaguely remember it, but I don't know that much about it. But it is definitely just, I don't have the crater names, but it is just an alignment of I believe 3 different craters. And for about a 2 or 3 hour period, each lunation, each month, the sunrise will be hitting that just about right, and that X will stand out and illuminate it very pretty. And I just happened to hit it with pure luck that night out. My last video. That was purely by luck. And it really is a striking object. I was really blown away by it. I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't looking for it, and I just stumbled on it. All right, and we'll continue on here. I'm looking at the time on this again because I say, as I do these videos, I'm amazed at how quickly the time goes by. Here I'm looking at a clock that says 22 minutes and 25 seconds I've been on, and it really it goes by so fast you don't realize it. I try to keep these somewhere around 30 minutes is not bad, but I don't like to go too much longer than that, and sometimes I end up going quite a ways beyond that. That crater, which is right at the end of the line of the Altai Scarp, which is almost dead center, it's got a nice central peak in it, and boy, I'm going to really look stupid on this one because this pronunciation of this one I have no idea. Piccolomini, it's spelled Piccolomini, 53-mile wide crater, and with a nice central peak. And if you remember, I talked about central peaks. I know that's come up on YouTube on several sites. People didn't understand what they were, and right away they had to be moon bases of some type or antennas or some such thing. And no, they're not. They're a byproduct of an impact on the moon under the right circumstances. You can see the same thing happen if you take a big boulder and throw it in a nice quiet pond. You'll see the rock splash in, the water separate out. The water will come rushing back in to fill the void where the rock hit, and when you see that water hit in the center, there'll be a secondary rebound splash of water that goes straight up in the air. And that's what you're seeing here. That's the central peak on these craters. It's the moon acting like a liquid when it's been whacked by a large meteor or a small asteroid. And under the right circumstances, it produces beautiful central peaks like this. We can zoom in. This scene is, I'm struggling with this scene tonight. It's not the best. What have I got? I got everything set on auto. Let's try taking the auto off, and let's just see if we can play with this crater, give it a little better. And it's not responding all that well. Contrast. You can boost the contrast up a little bit. I don't like to go too high with it. Contrast will bring out some more detail, but it kind of overblows a lot of the nice fine detail too if you go too high with it. Let's back out a click or two, get rid of some of that wavering in the atmosphere. Come down here some more. Another thing, as I was saying, when I went to Neef, I was going down there. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to change the rate on this, and as I'm talking, I'm going to let this telescope just drift slowly along the terminator. When I was down at Neef, I was looking for a what's called a V filter, a violet filter, and I have a refractor, and it's a little bit smaller than this telescope. Boy, there's some nice features there. We're getting tight into the. As we get over near the terminator, I want to get a little closer to the terminator, and really, here we are. We're getting really on it now. Boy, that detail is just gorgeous tonight. It's a filter for refracting telescopes, and I have an Orion 4.7-inch refractor. So basically it's a 5-inch refractor, so it's basically the same size as this telescope we're using here tonight. Only it's a straight-through refractor. Just think of the old sea captain on his ship holding up his spyglass and looking through it. That's a refractor. The light just comes through the lenses and through the eyepieces. No mirrors involved. And the one thing those telescopes do, though, is cause some false color in the blue. I explained it a little bit at one time before. Light refracted through the lenses and brought to focus comes to focus at different points for the different wavelengths of light. And blue tends to be one of the worst. It's a shorter focal length, and it tends not to focus up well with the other colors. And so these refractors, even though they come up with what they call achromatic refractors, where they use two types of glass, a crown and a flint, to get a better quality image, you still get some blue fringing. And unless you're willing to spend a lot of money to get in what they call an APO refractor with 3 and 4 element lenses, which really cuts down on that false color, and they are extremely expensive, you're going to get this false color. Well, this filter is designed to cut out the violet end of the spectrum, and it's supposed to make refractors like mine perform better. I used that refractor one time before. Look at these nice. I love these. I love these areas with these hills and with a smaller mountain ranges on them. They're really nice. Anyway, it's supposed to cut out that blue fringing that's caused by the blue light being focused a little bit shorter. And by chopping off the spectrum at the violet end and chopping some of that violet light off, it gets rid of some of it on the moon. And I did use that refractor one night a few months ago, and it worked fairly well, except I did notice some fringing, some blue fringing. So I've got that filter. It turned out that I didn't get it at Neef. I went down there expecting to have everybody in the world have one, and I couldn't find anybody down there with one. And I ended up ordering it from Orion Telescope when I got home. But I do have it, and the next night out when the moon is closer to full, I want to use that telescope with that V filter, and I want to see what it does for color. And here we are coming back to our Sea of Tranquility and Sea of Serenity with the divider line there with the blue on the bottom, the brown on top. Let's get back over to the Terminator. You might hear some voices in the background. I'm actually out in back behind my retirement community again, and our church is right behind that. And they have an event going on behind there now, and people are leaving, going to their cars, and you may hear some voices and talk. And that's what's going on. But anyway, I do want to try using that filter. Hopefully I'll get a run in before the moon hits full this time around, or around full. And we'll see how it performs. It should be pretty interesting. Tonight we're not getting a lot of color. and more of a, what I like to call like a butterscotch look, kind of a yellowish brown look to it. Not much blue tonight. And here we go. We're coming back up to the northern part of the moon. This is back where we started out, I believe. Let me see. I've already forgotten, but I believe that's Eudoxus and Aristoteles, I believe, coming into view. Yeah, that's where we are. And we'll keep going up. And we've hit 30 minutes, so I'm going to think about shutting this down for the night. Again, I apologize for not getting that good friend of mine, an imaging, what I call it, really an imaging expert, in to sit down with me and do one of these sessions and talk about this color. Would have really been neat, but boy, I don't know, he picked up something coming through the airports on the way to Connecticut, and we both ended up with it. We had a great time at the NEAF, though, so that's all that counted. We had a real good time. Saw lots of toys. Wish I went down with all kinds of money, but that wasn't going to happen. So anyway, I guess we'll end it here. Like I say, look for another video. I hope to get something out around before or close to full moon. Not sure of the timing exactly of that. And we'll do that test with the 5-inch refractor with the violet filter, and we'll see how it does with handling the color of the moon and presenting a good image of the moon. So with that, anyway, I'll say good health, guys, clear skies, and I hope to see you real quick with another video using that refractor with the V filter. See you later, guys.